Welcome back, everybody. It's D Ross with the LEO Network. Again, sponsored and giving a shout out to CSEC, Campbell Harris Security Equipment Company. Please go to CSEC or SECO.com, CSECO.com. Get on their website. You'll see it. They got reviews. They got up-to-date articles dealing with security and so forth. Get on there. I promise you won't be disappointed. Today, though, I want to jump right into the guest because we're going to have a lot to talk about. I mean, probably more than usual. My guest is Brad Young, and he represents Get Safe USA and Get Safe on the Edge. Got the two websites we're going to show you. We're going to run through it, and there is a ton of stuff on each website. All of it, I believe, need to know. Brad, good evening. How you doing, buddy?
Good. Thanks for having me on your show.
Hey, no, it's my pleasure. My pleasure. So I looked at both of these websites here. First of all, I only thought there was one until you said, "No, go check the other one." We're going to run through all of this stuff. I hope you're prepared, brother, because I'm going to ask a whole ton of questions. But first, let's get the background. Now, you're not you haven't started the company, but you're managing these trainings. Is that right?
Yeah. So the founder of our company, Stuart Haskin, is out of Orange County. He is a reserve deputy for Orange County Sheriff's Office and has been for, a decade plus. He started Get Safe about 35 to 37 years ago, and it primarily was an organization that advocated for victims of violent crimes and sexual crimes, and advocated for those on the intellectual and developmental disability spectrum, so those with autism. Mm-hmm. And he was providing safety training and self-defense courses through a Krav Maga studio, and just trying to empower these vulnerable populations. What he noticed in his reserve deputy status was that there was a lack of training for cops in working with those on the IDD spectrum. And so he started teaching a variety of courses, but what landed was a basically crisis intervention and behavioral health that was post-certified in California. And it was for cops working the street and the beat to be able to understand, recognize signs and indicators of an intellectual or developmental disability, and then maneuver through the nuances to de-escalate a situation when somebody on that spectrum was escalated.
Yeah, we went through when I was at the California Highway Patrol. We had those training. Matter of fact, they made it mandatory. I remember those.
And they should. I don't want to be rude to any other agencies out there around the country, but there is constantly just videos that are popping up of officers not engaging in a way with somebody in the community when the person in the community is saying, I have these characteristics or markers, or I'm on the spectrum. And then it's just like, I don't know what to do with this. So we're talking about somebody that is neurologically different than what we would refer to as a neurotypical person like yourself or me. And it's unfortunate because it's the numbers are about 7 times more likely somebody on the autism spectrum to come into contact with law enforcement than somebody that's not. And that's because they're oftentimes victimized, or they find themselves in situations where they're being reported. And so police are interacting with them more often because the general population doesn't recognize or understand what it looks like when somebody's on the autism spectrum.
Right. Nor are they looking for it.
Right.
I had a bad experience with that myself. There was a time, of course, being a graveyard guy, you're deuce hunting, right? Looking for drunks, and we're out there on the stop, and then way over across the shoulder there on the other side of a chain link fence, there was this dude just standing out there looking at us and staring at us, and I immediately think they're drunk, and you start speaking to them a certain way, and asking them all these questions, and they can't answer. So every time they can't answer, of course, you think more and more. And then I get up and I make contact with the cat, and he is a young dude, 21, severely autistic. And what he was doing, he was looking at us for help, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know that until I was already punching myself in the balls with Shane. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I'll remember that's the day I died. Now we were able to get the cat help, got him home, so on and so forth. But he looked to us because he saw the uniform and trusted us. And then immediately it was impossible to gain that trust back because of his, he was severely autistic, right? We already blew the trust, you know what I'm saying, even though we were helping him. So I didn't mean to go off on a tangent there, but I will
Oh,
remember
no.
that always. And because you mentioned that, I told the story so people can avoid that. Because like I said, I'll be punching myself in the balls to the day I die regretting that. You know what I mean?
It is, you're not the only one that's ever experienced that either, man. So don't beat yourself up too much. But and you look at the numbers in like 2018 when we really started pushing this course across California, the numbers were like 1 in 54 people are affected by autism. And then in the update in 2020, it was like 1 in 44. And now today, the most recent data we have is 1 in 36 people are diagnosed with ASD. So that's a bunch of people that are walking around that are affected by autism, just autism alone. That doesn't include fetal alcohol syndrome, Down syndrome, or any other kind of developmental or intellectual disability. And we don't get enough training as law enforcement to engage and interact and de-escalate individuals on the spectrum when things like their routine get broken and it just causes the entire day to spin out of control.
Yeah, we have no idea what anxiety is. These cats.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an uncontrollable anxiety, and it's not their fault. And the trade, like you said, the training to be able to recognize that, you might be able to do something to calm the storm, if you will.
Yeah, we like to look at it through the idea of like prevention and intervention through tactical decision making. And when I say tactical, I'm not talking about long guns and pieing a corner. I'm talking about having all of the information that you can possibly have to make the best decision in that moment that keeps everybody safe.
Your weapons don't have to be deadly, right?
Right?
They just have to, disarming is what they have to be, or
Exactly.
peacemaking, so to speak. You know what I mean? So that's why verbal judo, so to speak.
Yeah, this is like verbal judo on steroids
Mm-hmm.
and broken down to like the lowest common denominator so that everybody understands it.
Gotcha.
So my background is in hostage negotiation and crisis intervention. So when I came on to the team as a full timer for Get Safe, we really started including these tactics and strategies that you use in a hostage negotiation situation and dumping them into these CIT and de-escalation courses.
I told you it was going to be interesting. Hostage negotiation. And you're using that, you're teaching that with that you have learned already, right? You're
Yeah,
sharing that knowledge.
we are. Yeah.
That's
So
awesome. Right.
it is, and honestly, like I love these courses that we're teaching because it's putting, and I'm going to say this and it's going to probably rub people the wrong way, but
Hey, just say it, baby. Just say it.
I'm used to that by now. A crisis intervention training for law enforcement is generally 40 hours. And by the end of it, they walk away going, well, I know how to reverse engineer somebody's medication to understand their diagnosis, but I don't know how to talk them down and de-escalate the situation.
Right.
Whereas you go to a 40-hour hostage negotiation course and you walk away going, if my phone rings, I can walk into any situation and not know the person, and in 3 to 4 hours have them doing the opposite of what they wanted to do. So why aren't we teaching that to the patrol officer to avoid some of these issues that that come about?
I think awareness. The awareness is greater on some things than it is the other. I mean, it's funny what people consider important, what they don't consider important.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, unfortunately, a lot of in those situations, mistakes have to be made before they find it as important as it needs to be. But that's why we're here. That's why we're talking about what we talk about. You see. So you're saying it started with that, right? but then it expands. It expands from that, right? What does it expand to, and why?
So we start with this basic crisis, 8 hours of crisis intervention and de-escalation, where the first 4 hours is heavily focused on working with somebody with a developmental disability.
Mm-hmm.
And the last 4 hours are de-escalation tactics for patrol that start with the officer, where you have you're forced to look at yourself. You're forced to look at how you are reacting to a situation, how you feel about it, what your beliefs and perceptions are before you ever show up. And then it transfers and just expands. So now we are dealing with the environment and the people that are in it, and how to use things that we know in law enforcement, active listening, empathy, rapport building, and influence to affect behavioral change. And that behavioral change is generally what we would like to see is voluntary compliance.
Any any feel great stories where your training was applied, and that somebody reached out to you and said, "Yo, thank you for this training, man. I just talked this dude off a ledge," type thing. Is anything like that happen?
We do get stories like that periodically, but I I would like to save one of those feel good stories for when we talk about a different course.
Of course.
For this one, I can tell you, what it. We had a. I worked in Northern California, and we had a guy come across the East Bay into to the South Bay, and in transit decided to strip off all of his clothes and try to jump out of the taxi cab as it's driving over the bridge. The taxi decides to stop literally feet from our border of our town and the next jurisdiction over. So as soon as he stops, the guy jumps out and takes off running, and he's in his underwear, just beating feet around, Silicon Valley in his BVDs.
Silicon Valley, no less.
Yeah. And
Okay.
so, it's bizarre. It's peculiar. Officers are getting there. The sergeant calls and says, "Hey, man, if you're not busy, can you come up and give us a hand?" I was working as an SRO at the time, and since it was summer, I had some availability. When I got there, the guy was running from uniform patrol, and I engaged him, and I was talking to him in the same way we teach in our courses. And the reason he was running was because all the uniformed police officers had yellow tasers, and he had just been tased a week prior.
Oh
So he was
yeah.
afraid they were going to tase him. Just basic emotional labeling, open-ended questions, knowing when to stop talking, made him feel comfortable enough to self-surrender and put handcuffs on and get in the backseat of a patrol car, go to the hospital. And that's a very common interaction. That happens every day across America, probably multiple times a day across America.
Definitely.
And the community really never sees that happening. They only see when things go bad. And so the perception that they get is, cops are heavy handed. But the reality is you get guys in there and gals in there that are doing this kind of work and effectively communicating all the time. And they just need a little bit more support and better PR.
Well, people love to be angry. They love
Yes.
to talk about the bad. They will talk about the bad stuff. You know what I mean? They'll pass up 50 feel good stories for that one.
Yeah.
And the one they talk about might not even be bad. They just caught it at the very tail end when all the negotiation was exhausted and their hand was forced. You know what I mean? Now, that being said, we all know that there's a dark side to these stories, of course.
Okay.
But I see what you're saying. Definitely. Now, is that part of the Get Safe USA training, or is that on both sides?
So you have those two websites. So Get Safe USA is the company. It's Get Safe, and Get Safe does trainings for those on the IDD spectrum, basic, life skills, and functional legal competency, and safe dating relationships, and basically how to stay safe. But then if you come over to the law enforcement training, you're still within Get Safe. And now Get Safe has the crisis intervention training that's for police. Then we have one that's similar, that's for corrections. And then we have a recovering missing persons if they have dementia or autism. And then we have a youth in crisis course, which is an advanced crisis intervention training, which is only 4 hours.
Well, let's take a look at the site, shall we?
Yeah.
You want to do that?
Yeah.
All right, give me a sec here, and we'll get it pulled up here, and then I'll let you navigate. Use me to navigate through it. All right,
Okay.
and we'll make sure we got the right one up there. That's it there? Yeah.
Yes, that's our main site.
Is that the one you wanted me to pull up, or is it the other
Yeah,
one?
that's a great place to start.
Okay.
If you can slide over to training options.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
And then
that's a captive saving.
So yeah, we do campus and corporate safety
Mm-hmm.
and community trainings and law enforcement training. But before we jump in law enforcement,
Sure.
that community training, safety training, one of the things that we offer that I think we talk about good PR is we have this thing called Bridge the Divide. And the Bridge the Divide is we go and we talk to communities and we basically explain to them what they should expect from law enforcement in a crisis intervention situation. And then we bring in law enforcement and we facilitate a conversation so that if there are hard feelings from one side to the other, they can work through that in a safe, controlled environment where they can disagree if they choose to, but it's done in a respectful manner, and line level officers and command staff get to communicate with people in the community that are usually voicing very strong opinions. So what we do is we try to bridge that gap and make sure that each side understands each side. We've done a couple of them in Northern California last year.
In Northern California?
Yeah, we did one. We did a couple up in Mendocino County last spring.
And how's it working out? Is it overall positive type deal?
We got
are they able to discuss and debate and get answers, or it is
yes.
just okay, good, productive?
We went to one on a Monday, and then we got word that the one that we were doing on Tuesday was going to be rough because of some things that had happened in the community. Just things that make you just shake your head and go, "Oh my gosh." And everybody showed up. The police knew they were going to take it on the chin. But you know what? They were humble and they talked about the things that went wrong and how they could be better. And they listened to the community and really tried to help patch up those rough spots so that we reinvigorate the idea of police legitimacy within the community so that it's working. Oftentimes we look at the police and the community as separate entities and not realizing that the police are an integral part of the community. They may not live in it, but they definitely serve it, and they have a vested interest in that community being successful.
And part of that is letting them know that we have stuff like this where we're pushing out trainings and people are responding to these trainings. They're actively pursuing these trainings to be better. You know what I mean? It's ultimately you just want to help. You just you want to save people, help people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And you may never get the opportunity to actually say that out loud, but we give you a platform within that Bridge the Divide thing. So that's something that's not really like we don't advertise for training because it's not really a training as much as it is a discussion. Now, if you go back to that training options link and then roll down to law enforcement training, we can just take a quick stroll through what we're offering.
All right, can you see it?
I can, yeah.
All right, good.
So that very first one is unique because it's an advanced crisis intervention course.
Talk about that.
It's specific to the adolescent brain development. Now, being who you are, I'm sure you've heard of an organization called the NTOA, the National Tactical Officers Association.
Yeah.
So they're a fairly large organization, and I wrote an article for them on how to negotiate with an adolescent, and it was very well received, and it was made the front page or the cover story of the Tactical Edge, which is their trade publication. So we started actually looking at this as maybe we should create a course, and that's what we did. So we built a course for either school resource officers, probation officers, or anybody that deals with children on their beat, aging from, little kid all the way up to teenager. And we discuss how working with an adult is different than working with a kid, because kids' brains aren't as developed and they think differently. So kids are emotionally driven people that don't understand feelings. They
Right.
think in terms of short term, so very almost in a linear fashion. What's the most important thing is the thing that's going to happen the soonest. And because they lack life experience, they tend to deliberate in groups to make decisions.
Mm.
So when you start to look at kid problems through that lens of feelings oriented group thinkers, that catastrophize everything, you start to change your mindset and perspective on how to engage with that kid and get from where they are to bringing them back down to a place of logic and reasoning where they can make a good decision and hopefully stay whole. Now, the city that I worked in had a lot of adolescent suicides, and so that's kind of where this training and experience came from, was dealing firsthand with a bunch of kids that found themselves on 5150 or psychiatric holds. And, one is too many, but there was far more than one. And
Yeah. Almost disturbing, huh?
yeah, very much so.
Mm.
So that's what that course is. It's all about working with kids. And the reason that's unique is because that's part of the On the Edge programming that we can talk about in a little bit.
And the great thing about the kids is, I mean, they talk about it after you start there to eliminate a lot of the reason why we do our job, you know what I mean? Or the fact that we have jobs. I think if you start at that age, if you start understanding them and teaching them the ways, and it might prevent them from,
Yeah,
you know, entering a lifestyle that that wasn't intended for them, I guess.
you're right on with that. That's it kind of, not to jump around too much, but there was an article, or not an article, a white paper written years ago about school safety. And one of the biggest barriers of safety in a school system was that kids didn't feel safe reporting concerning behaviors because they didn't want to be seen as a snitch,
Hmm.
or they didn't trust the people that they would tell. If you can become a trusted adult as a police officer, which seems like a no-brainer, what you can do is really support your community, because now people will tell you things that you wouldn't have heard otherwise.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a there's a report that came out recently that was dealing with, um, it's called Averting School Violence, and it said that most uh, of the people that were reported to were either peers or friends. Like it's like 60% of these kids are reporting these concerning behaviors to their friends. Johnny said
Right.
friends. Well, what's their friend going to do with that information? Nothing.
Only gossip
And unless
at
they
that
have a
point.
trusted adult that they can go to, it's
Hmm.
not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And honestly, the police presence were, out of 100, they were getting told 3 times
Mm.
of concerning behaviors, not direct threats, like the things that keep you up at night.
Yeah.
So if we can establish this trusted adult relationship where we are the police, but we're here to solve a problem and help keep you safe, you can trust me with the information that you're giving me. Then what we do is we then make that we improve relationships with future generations, and we ensure safety in the school systems where, with, there are, not to mention certain states, but ones that have absconded from the idea of having SROs present in their schools.
Yeah.
What you're really doing is you're basically just, you're not putting band-aids over problems anymore. You're actually triaging and treating the issue and getting future generations to make the right decisions in those moments and picking them up when otherwise they'd feel like unheard.
Not just band-aids, you're putting ointment on the wound now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You get that thing healed.
Yeah. One of those hippie salves that you see on the street fairs.
I told B before we started this, man, I like you, man. You already had me laughing like 15 times before we started this damn thing. What else we got in here that you want to look at here?
Okay. You asked about a feel-good story. So we have our recovering missing persons course, which it's not a nationally certified course yet, but it's one you should take regardless. Okay. It's not a very long course. It's not an all-dayer, but because of you guys, the Leo Network, we have had success stories come in from around the country. I took your class, and no kidding, later that day or the next day, we had a 3-year-old child on the autism spectrum go missing. We implemented the things that you talked about in your class, and we were able to recover them and find them. And it's tactics, it's strategies, it's what to look for, where to go, and how to prioritize your order of work when recovering a missing person that we really dive deep into this course. So if I can recommend 3 courses, it would be our crisis intervention de-escalation, the advanced crisis intervention for youth, and the recovering missing persons, because you're going to make a lot of change in your community for the better if you take these courses.
Fantastic. Let me get to this here. Oh, wait a minute. Where are the courses there?
So go to training, law enforcement.
There it is. All right.
And then if you scroll down.
I love that de-escalation. I love that right there.
And right there, recover the one.
Oh, there it is. Now, I mean, we got that call on the regular.
Yeah.
You know, gone.
Yeah.
Blown up, you know.
It's a sad thing, because when you look at things on the spectrum, so there was a kid on the spectrum that we dealt with fairly regularly that would go missing, that was nonverbal. He couldn't advocate for himself, couldn't speak for himself, couldn't do anything besides just kind of stand there and stare at you. And so if you didn't know who he was or how to get familiar with this person, then you're basically not helping anybody. But it got to the point, he would get a call, he would show up, it'd be middle of the night, and we would know what house to go to, knock on the door, say, hey, your 16-year-old nonverbal autistic son escaped again. And it's not the family's fault by any means. Like, we're talking, they had the door jamb just lined with locks, because he would fiddle with the locks until he figured it out. And eloping is a part of, it was a very regular part of living with a child with autism, is you got to deal with is that kid taking off. So as a first responder, you should probably know how to find them quickly.
And it's such a it's hard to get specific in that training, or am I wrong? Because I mean, the scope is so vast. I mean, there's from I was told that they hate to use the word functioning, but that's the only word I can think of now. But functioning to severe, there's such a broad scope there. I mean, how do you get specific enough to make that umbrella to where you can, like, if I come across somebody who functions rather well, and the next thing I come across somebody who really nonverbal, escapes a lot. I mean, you know what I mean? How do you get specific and teaching how to deal that?
So one of the things that we would encourage, so we have the law enforcement piece, and then we also have the community piece of things that they can do, right? So we talk to both sides. And what we would encourage is that if you are a police officer and you have those in your community that have, you're looking for eloping response and prevention. It might be we would encourage you to go in and say, hey, go and introduce yourself to your local agency. And if you're the police, hold a town hall meeting or put it out on your social media where you can get to know those. If you go to training options, there it is. Go to these training options and or social media or a town hall meeting and say, hey, we want to get to know you. We want to be familiar. So if there's a crisis that involves your loved one, we're aware of, where they are in the spectrum. Are they low functioning, nonverbal? Or are they high functioning, very verbal? Or are they somewhere in between? It's situational awareness at the community policing level.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And offered in Southern California, Kern County, San Luis Obispo County, South.
And the elopement prevention and response course is it's also done virtually. So
Yeah, I was going to say now, you're in Idaho.
Yeah, I'm in Idaho. The company's in California, and most of our instructors are in California.
So you have 2 instructors. You're doing in class and virtual. So anybody who sees this says, "Oh, I got to have it." Yeah. They are able to get it. It'll just be virtual.
It should be. Yeah. We have never shied away from helping people. If somebody needs help, we're there.
Yeah.
So that's that one. If you want to just roll back real quick to that the Crisis Intervention De-escalation course, there's something unique about this one specifically that is the law enforcement training. And it'll be the one on that one right
here.
There. We are one of 7 companies that are vendorized and approved for use for COPS funding for crisis intervention and de-escalation training. Meaning, whether you're in a major metropolitan in California, or you're in some small little rural community in the middle of Oklahoma, all you have to do is contact us, and then we plug you into your de-escalation center. And then we send 2 people out to your agency and host a private training for 8 hours that is completely paid for by the federal government.
Fantastic.
So you get like super high-end, high-level training for free. And all you have to do is call us, and we do all the hard work for you.
It's the same kind of is that just law enforcement? Because I mean, you offer the training.
That is a law enforcement only.
What about you guys? But you guys offer the same thing to teachers and counselors and
so. Yeah, that's not funded through the government, but we can talk about that real quick. If you actually, that's a pretty good transition. If you want to pull up the other website, so we have within it's like a subdivision of this. We call it our Guardian program, and the Guardian program is for anyone that needs to protect or safeguard themselves or those around them. We have the On the Edge programming.
Can you see that?
Yeah, it looks better on your screen than it did on mine.
All right.
And what we do here, so have you ever heard, there's a book called Left of Bang. And the premise of the book is that there's a timeline. There's a before and there's an after. But in order to have a before and an after, you have to have something that goes boom.
Yeah.
So anything before the boom, people are unaware that boom ever exists. Everything after is recovery. It's response, it's trauma care, it's any kind of like reforming policies, protocols, dealing with counseling, whatever that is. What we're doing is we are saying, hey, look, there is a space, and it is a known entity, that if we prepare teachers, staff, janitors, superintendents, counselors in a school system to be aware of certain behavioral cues and real information, then we can basically reduce what we call the less than effect and get people help before it becomes an active shooter or an active targeted violence. And I want to be real clear about this because this is like my passion project within this organization.
Yeah, lay it on us.
There is a lot of definitions of what active shooters are. And when we talk about it, we're talking about targeted violence where somebody came into a school system with intent and purpose. And the purpose was to either retaliate for a grievance or come up equal on that less than effect. And then you look at all of these different think tanks, and I use that term very, very loosely out there. And a definition that's used is, well, anytime somebody brings a gun, brandishes a gun, shoots a gun, or a bullet was fired from a gun and hits the campus, regardless where it was fired from, it doesn't matter if there was victims or not, the time of day, the time of year, or day of the week. That's an active shooter. So now maybe you have a gang shooting and it's a block over, but a bullet comes from
a stray bullet
comes down and lands in the grass on 1 o'clock in the morning on Sunday. Well, now somebody is saying that's an active shooter event at a school. All that does is generate fear. And when people are afraid to go to work or afraid to go to school, what kind of learning is actually happening? So how are we preparing future generations to be successful adults if they're constantly in fear that they're going to be subjected to gunfire at their school on a regular basis?
Absolutely.
Now, you hear a lot of, well, let's put hardening the target. That works for embassies and government buildings, but in a school setting, if it feels like a prison, learning isn't happening.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, hardening a target doesn't make a lot of sense for a school system because most of the suspects in a targeted violence or active shooter situation from a school come from within the school itself.
That's been the case. Yeah.
It's 3 out of 4. So putting up a 10-foot fence with concertina wire and reinforcing the base of it with concrete, you're only preventing people from escaping. You're not helping anybody stay out because
what's that like on a kid's mind, or what, like to go out there and feel like they're in a prison yard?
That can't be good for them.
I mean, that's not recess. That's yard time.
That's yard time. You
know what I mean?
Correct on that. So what we're doing is we offer like this 4-hour training, and it's prevention. We actually talk about the data, the numbers, and we clean it up so that it's understood what the reality of the situation is. And then we transfer into understanding the brain development. We look at the less than effects. So that's bullying and suicide. Mm-hmm. Then we give staff within a school this skills to recognize indicators of pre-assaultive violence. So pre-flight, pre-assaultive indicators, the same kind of training that law enforcement gets. You see the same thing happening in the school system. Mm-hmm. You see the same kinds of natural tendencies that show up.
What are some of those tendencies?
The blading stance, the looking over your shoulder, the removing clothing, the wiping away fake sweat. Mm-hmm. When you try to hide what you have in your pockets by putting your hand over it and you're walking unnaturally to make sure that bulge isn't seen.
And you ain't pulling no damn body.
Exactly. But it makes sense to you and me because we work the streets and we understand what that looks like. To somebody that's been teaching math their whole life, they've never seen that. At least not been able to articulate it. So let's give them the power to be present and keep their self and those around them safe. We go into the communication side of things. We show videos where these behaviors are very pronounced, where you can clearly see them. Everything has a training activity, whether it's a game. Like, all right, here's the video. You tell me what you think is going to happen next based on this behavior. we get to the communication things, and we do hostage negotiation style training tactics where we put people back to back and have to have a hard conversation with a targeted purpose to pull certain information out of the other person in the conversation. We look at the universal emotions that people all over the world express on their faces: joy, sadness, disgust, fear, surprise, contempt.
Body language is key, baby.
And what we do is we help adults that have a fully functioning prefrontal cortex, the decision-making side of things, help give them the ability to help guide the emotionally incompetent, feelings-driven kids that they work with every day. And the idea is that we're making, instead of the kid feeling less than, the kid now feels supported and whole. Because most of these things in schools are as a result of a grievance. And if we can eliminate that grievance, then we can solve a lot of problems. And I know the money's in the comeback, not the cure, but I'd like to be the cure on this one.
Oh, well, no doubt about it. He just quoted Chris Rock, guys. Ain't no money in the cure. It's the comeback. So I just want to point out, so now, I mean, the curriculum is already, interested in good stuff. I mean, but they're going to put you through exercises, people. I mean, get your hands on so you understand it. So it's not like you're going to sit there and go, you know what I mean? It's going to be, you're going to learn some stuff just by whether you want to or not. You know what I mean? It's going to be all good stuff. That frontal lobe cortex, is that what you call it?
Yeah, the prefrontal cortex.
That's what
the frontal lobe.
Yeah, my brother would slap me if he heard me butcher that like that. He used to talk to me about that all the time, about when you're emotional, that portion, you might as well just throw that out the window because you're not thinking with this, right? That's why your decisions are all foobar. And then he said, so that's why you never, ever act on emotion because you're not using the right portion of the brain, right? And he said, I'm going to give you an example. He said, did you notice that every time you get in an argument and you're pissed off, right? And you're just yelling, but as soon as you leave that argument, 15 minutes later, you think of the perfect comeback. Well, that's because the emotions have subsided and now you're back to thinking here. And now you're making sense. Now you're thinking reasonably. Now you have that perfect comeback, but it's too damn late because you couldn't control your emotions during the argument. I mean, right?
Oh, well, that's a great example. I've never heard that, but I'm gonna steal it and use it from now on because that's.
Hey, you use it.
I definitely will. That's a specific to this course. The Youth in Crisis course is a part of this On the Edge school safety package. So we have that. We have something for something for teachers in schools. We have something for the law enforcement officers. So now we're taking everybody that's involved in the solution and giving them tools and resources, and they're all on the same page. And then, I think you saw it on the website because we were talking about it earlier. We also offer a parenting course so that the parents have the ability to.
Let's look at that. That for sure. It was right up here. I saw it.
So if you go to courses and then check out the courses in the On the Edge family. And then parenting.
Parenting. And by the way, great title on that class, Parenting with a Purpose.
My first round of names for this was from defiance to compliance, and my test audience did not enjoy that.
I can see that. Compliance, compliance. It's submission, and nobody, I guess why I would rub them the wrong way, right? Like, we don't want them to submit. We just want them to choose better.
Kind of go along with the program. But we cover a number of things like this. This is just the initial stages, right? So we talk about, how is a mom and dad, aunt, uncle, grandma, grandpa, whoever's the guardian of that child, how are they going to say this is right or this is wrong if they don't understand where their own line in the sand is?
No doubt.
And so once you understand where your line in the sand is, now you can start communicating what your boundaries and expectations are. The key to resentment is unspoken expectations not being met.
Hmm.
And how mad do you get at your kids when they didn't do what you didn't ask them to do? Uh,
Right.
I got
So,
3 of my own, and it's summertime still, so we have daily conversations about how come you didn't do the dishes? Well, Dad, you didn't tell me to. Ah, you're right. I
you know,
forgot to.
that being said, uh, I'll never be the perfect dad. You know what I'm saying? But I'll tell you, the day I became a better dad is the minute I looked in that dreaded mirror. You know what I'm saying? You look in the mirror,
You.
and then you go, hmm. And then it take, you know what I'm saying? And you get past that initial pain, ouch, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You realizing who you are and, what you are, then you're able to, what I was able to better communicate and even communicate, like you said, you don't tell them, but I was able to tell them
Yeah.
and tell them in a productive manner. Yeah.
It's crazy. We one of the biggest takeaways that we see is, and I don't know if this will pick up because of the virtual background, but I'm home with my kids all day long, and it's always
Let me
this.
see it. Let me get it. Let me get it. Hold on. There you got it. What do you got? It?
It's my phone. It's just me going through my
Oh, yeah.
phone.
Yeah.
I'm checking my Instagram. I'm going
Yeah.
through different DMs. I'm looking at Facebook Marketplace. I'm doing all of these different things. But at the end of the day, that's not being present. You want a parenting tip to walk away with today that is it carries out through the entire course of parenting with purpose is be present. Don't
Hmm.
If you're in a room with your kids, set the example and set the standard by engaging them in conversation. Conversations should be natural and feel normal. It shouldn't be the anomaly. We shouldn't have to talk only when you're doing something that makes me mad.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me show you this real quick. What I was looking at here.
Mm-hmm.
So well, I'll just read the bullet points real quick. Is establishing family values, boundaries, and expectations, understanding technology and how it impacts your child. You just spoke on that. Why teens do the things they do. Now, let's stop there real quick. What I'm asking is, during this parenting with a purpose, uh, does it involve, like, going home and let's say a kid gets it, and you know kids for the most part are good kids, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and let's say he gets it. Now, of course, he has the normal teenage problems, but let's say he gets it. Do you offer any kind of information on how to show them how to recognize behaviors at school as well? Like, you know what I mean?
Yes. Not sort of. It's complicated, right? So
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
um, we want to have conversations with our kids about what to look for. So if I equip the parents, they can equip their kids that align with their own family values and things. So you get there. I can't speak to every culture, and I can't speak to every threshold of what's okay and what's not okay
Sure.
in line with the parents. What I can do is I can encourage schools to look at our Safe Students Academy, which we that really focuses on bullying behavior because there's a
Hmm.
really close connection between bullying and suicide. A lot of the things that you see in one, you see in the other. So if you can articulate the behavior to a way that's almost objective and not subjective as much, so it's not as feelings driven, but it's like, hey, I saw this, this, and this. So now you can actually go in and say, hey, I I heard that you're eating lunch in the bathroom by yourself, and I heard that you handed like you're starting to give things that you had at the beginning of the school away, and we're only halfway through it.
Right.
And so these are articulable, objective behaviors that are in line with suicide, and they're also an indicator that somebody's avoiding something. So avoidance is a big thing, especially when we're talking about bullying with kids. Is we want to make sure that kids feel whole and that they feel safe to be in their environments. Otherwise, if they avoid it, what are they avoiding? Is it a teacher? Is it a student? What is it? So
Right.
that's what we want to empower into the kids is you're going to feel things, you're going to see things, you're going to hear things. You may not understand them, but if you can communicate them effectively to an adult and the adult is equipped, then we can get in front of a lot of these problems. So
Love
we
it.
actually go through a lot of that. With the parents, we talk about, why kids do the things they do. We talk about brain development. We talk about the group think. We talk about thrill seeking, why, they're emotionally charged. Everything feels very powerful, but it's all feelings oriented. It's not found in logic or reasoning. Like I always joke with my classes. I'm like, hey, my mom used to say to me, if all your friends jumped off a bridge, would you do it? And in the moment you're like, no, mom, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But the reality is I absolutely would have done that. And I wouldn't have even thought twice about it. Oh, everybody else jumped. I might as well too. Otherwise,
Most
I'm
people
going to
do.
be made fun of and they're going to
Yeah.
tease me and I'm going to be the dork of the week. And I don't want that. I got to keep whatever reputation I have. So if you can understand why the action behind the behavior or the intention behind the behavior, then you can separate, is this behavior defiance or bad behavior, or is it just a bad decision that had an unintended consequence?
Man, that's some good stuff right there. How long you guys been around, by the way?
So we Get Safe as a company has been around for 37 years, I believe. We just launched.
How many years?
37.
Lord have mercy.
But we really didn't start diving into law enforcement training until like 2017, between 17 and 19. But since then, what is that? 6 years? We've held, I think 751 courses and taught just under 10,000 students.
Wow.
Cops.
Good on you. What took you down that avenue?
Law enforcement training?
Yeah.
Well, one, I love training. It's engaging. It's fun. You get to see a lot of things. You learn a lot. I did not go to college. Dropped out several times.
Same here.
So it just never stuck. But I found that when I would go and do training that was hands-on, I actually retained that information and I walked away and then I could apply it and use it in my job. So if I, had the perfect world, I'd be doing what I'm doing now. And that's training cops to do their job at a level that they wouldn't have gotten otherwise. Because the better the cop, the better the outcome.
Well, that is true. The better, I'll take it a step further, the better a cop wants to be. Like a cop that's always striving to be better. You know what I mean? Because, a mediocre cop who wants to be better all the time, I'll take over that gangster cop that doesn't care about anybody but himself type thing. You know what I mean? He just cares about, doing it just to do it, playing cop type stuff,
And it's a spectrum too, right? Like you got the guys that are high functioning, high performing, just out there, just hustling. They're working hard. They're trying to do their best. They're trying to make a difference. And then you get the people that show up and they just want to collect a paycheck. And so we want to like have everybody feel equipped that if it came down to it, they could handle that situation. Because I think a lot of inaction comes from not being equipped or feeling equipped to handle that. And there are some fear components of it, but if you can minimize that margin of fear with competency and faith and trust in equipment and performance ability, then I think that you solve some of that fear problem.
Plus, to make, now the trainings I think are a lot, they've evolved to like the hands-on stuff now and so on and so, because 90% of the training I went through, you're on your phone at some point,
Oh yeah.
and you're just kind of like, it's do it just to get done. But I really have faith in the fact that it's going to evolve, and people are going to be more there and attentive and there with a purpose. Policing with a purpose, like
Yeah.
parenting. You know what I mean?
And look, I want to be very clear about what we're teaching. We're teaching we teach crisis intervention and de-escalation. And de-escalation is a spectrum. So de-escalation can be from mere presence all the way to lethal force. It's because de-escalation is basically preventing further escalation. But what we focus on is strategies and tactics involved in the communication realm, because that is we're not teaching you firearms, we're not teaching you arrested control tactics, we're teaching you how to communicate. And if there is a problem that we've seen, and I'm sure that you've seen it too, people don't know how to talk to each other anymore. And
you
teach somebody how to talk to another human being without preconceived notions of how they're going to respond or what they're going to say, and you just talk to them like you're talking to your buddy, your grandma, or your mom, you get a lot further down the road than you would at just screaming MF at everybody.
I mean, it's almost like this is what you feel like you have to do now. I mean, there's no logic anymore. It's as soon as anything's in question, then it goes from 0 to 60. Then it's on nothing but hollering, and now the words really are empty. Now they really don't make any sense. And you're definitely not in the front court. What is it? You're definitely not up here. I'll just say up here.
Yeah, that's fine. No, you're right. But as the police officer involved in the situation, we it's not your crisis. That person's escalated just because they're all amped up and angry and mad and using the amygdala, the feelings piece in their brain, doesn't mean you have to. There's other ways to de-escalate before you have to start talking. And look,
matter of fact, if you don't do it, you might bring them back down, right?
Exactly. Just
see, I'm learning.
Like I said, prevention and intervention through tactical decision making. If I can think, I like to liken our courses to like an under the influence investigation for the emotionally escalated. I'm going to tell you things that you can look for and see, and then have a pretty good idea of what you're dealing with, and then how to do that investigation to bring them back down to the ground, so that they're using logic and reasoning in the front part of their brain to make decisions.
Bro, being a DRE, I love that analogy. I love that.
I'm glad you like it. Now,
yeah, man,
it's not an absolute.
Of course.
It's foolish to think that I can talk my way out of every situation, and because I can't, and that's because I could if it were all my decision, but there's another person involved that is also have to be willing to have that conversation and be de-escalated.
Love that analogy.
Well, it's not mine. The DRE one is that second part is I heard it from somebody much wiser than me.
Come on, you more wiser than you?
Yeah.
I mean, let me ask you this. So you're on the social medias, right? You mentioned Facebook and Instagram. So on these social medias, so spit out the handle and then tell me, do you put out little nuggets of knowledge? And
we do. So I don't give a lot of attention to the Facebook page because, like most people my age, I use Facebook for marketplace. But if you go to Instagram, we're Get Safe Guardians, and we try to post every week, but we do we tend to do 3 things at a time. We do like a carousel that is thoughtful or helpful, and then we do like a reel that either tells a story or engages conversation or is a tip, and then we have like a single post that is just kind of gives the idea of what we're talking about. for that stretch. And it was funny that you mentioned reviews, because when we were talking for your LEO network earlier, having
Yeah.
was reviewed, right? I was halfway through my social media creation for this week, and they were all just reviews that we had from our courses. So we're right here on the same page.
It's fantastic. It's a review world now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but I wanted to show this here before I forgot.
Sure.
And that is, so yes, your LinkedIn there, you mentioned that. YouTube we didn't mention, but you're in that.
Yeah, so I would definitely just go to the website, click on the YouTube link. The YouTube link has a lot of different content in terms of what our courses offer. We have a couple of like shorts that are minute long, tips, tricks, or whatever it is. It varies. Did not pop up.
Yeah, I clicked on it, but it's fantastic. Looking at it, and it's Brad at GetSafeUSA.com.
That is, if you want to send me an email, that's how you do it, and I will be happy to respond.
Yeah, you got back to me in 2 minutes today, less than that.
Yeah.
And that's the company number there.
Yep.
714-834-0050. And again, Brad at GetSafeUSA.com. Both of these websites we're going to mention too, though. So this one here that I'm on is a GSOnTheEdge.com. And this is your baby, right?
Yeah, this is the one that I spend most of my time working on and working within, just because of what it does. But for all of our general law enforcement training and community trainings, you can find that at GetSafeUSA.com.
GetSafeUSA.com.
Can I throw one more thing that I forgot to mention?
You can throw a lot. You can throw whatever you want, baby. This
if
is
you
your
stay
platform.
right here, can you scroll down on that page that you're on right now?
All the way down?
Just you scroll down until there is a within the On the Edge there, we have a partner.
On the homepage then.
Yeah. We have a partner that is Cole Engineering, and they created a virtual training scenario land
Where is that?
for basically you can do whatever you want to, because it's a virtual scenario.
Where is that? Is that on
so
training
our
options?
computer is not scrolling down. So if you just scroll down, there's a video that says Edge FRS, and that's for First Responder Sandbox.
I saw that.
So what we do is, because we support cops and community, so keep going down. Actually, you might be able to find it right there too.
Edge. Check out the courses on the Edge family, or join parenting.
That's fine. Check out the courses.
Oh, hold on, because that didn't pop up what I wanted to pop up.
And then it will be, if you go to active threat response. So we do, run, hide, fight is a decision-making model that's not taught through the lens of a decision-making model for schools. But what the first paragraphs are what I'd like to draw your attention to. It's the Edge Virtual Simulator. And what this is a virtual scenario land. It's not virtual reality. It's not it's basically a virtual shoot house, for lack of a better term, where whether you're a house of worship or a school or a law enforcement agency, they allow you to use this software for free. And it looks a lot like Fortnite if you're into video games, but everybody in the game logs in with their profession. So if you're a teacher, you're a teacher. If you're a SRO, you're an SRO. If you're a patrol officer, you're kitted out as a patrol officer. You have firemen and you have EMS and you have incident command. And what this does is you have somebody in the scenario that's a bad guy or a problem, and you then run this scenario as if it were live, but it doesn't cost you anything in ammunition. Nobody gets hurt. It's spatial audio, so you have to communicate with dispatch. If somebody shoots a gun on the left side of the screen, you hear it in your left ear. You have to basically utilize every response protocol that you have for that particular scenario, and then you get to test it, and it's free.
Wow.
Because these are our partners at Cole Engineering built this for Department of Homeland Security, and then they were scheduled to go across the country and start like using this in different police departments, and then COVID happened, and so they kind of shut down that thing. So if you go to the home page and scroll down to the videos near the bottom, there's one that says Edge First Responder Sandbox, and that is the video that they show what this program looks like. So when we teach at schools, I'm using our prevention training for the first 4 hours, and then I run scenarios through this software so that they can actually practice what to do in case of, say, there's an active shooter or a non-custodial parent trying to take custody of a kid or a suicide in the bathroom. We used it to create a hostage negotiation scenario for a negotiators conference in Iowa last year. So like, it is limited to your imagination. You just have to have somebody that's creative enough to come up with different problems.
I told you it's gonna be
It's free.
That's the key word. That's the key word. I told you this is gonna be banging. It's gonna be all interesting. I mean, really. I mean, that's fantastic. No excuse, really. Especially when you throw that word out there. And I mean free. Now, this is what I'd like to do is have you back.
Sure.
We anybody comes across, I don't care if it's 500 people, I'm always going to circle back with them. Because I know, especially in the training realm, it expands, it evolves. It has to. Mm-hmm. It has to. So, and then if anything comes out real world, that we can, have the expert discuss it and figure it out together, because now we're all seeing it together. We're all seeing the solution together. So it's it's kind of like a training day.
Yeah. And there's good training, there's bad training. We like to be on the good side of things. So if we can do anything to help people solve their problems and be effective and stay safe, go home at the end of the day better than they got there, then let's do that.
Fantastic. You my dude, Brad Young.
Sweet.
I mean, really. And so I want you to get on. I'm going to say it one more time. GetSafeUSA.com. And you got GS on the edge.com. We ran through the website, pretty much showed you how to navigate it. There's so much to look at, so much to see. And if it strikes you, you can even take it virtually. You know what I mean? And even said they'll go to you privately. Yeah. So get on it. Let's check it out. And we'll have them back, because I'm sure there's going to be several reasons to have them back. And I look forward to it. If you want to get on the podcast, you want to reach out to me, we want to get you on here. Just click the link. We'll have the link in the description. Click it. It'll get me an email. I'll reach out to you and we'll get down and we'll talk all about it. And again, shout out to the sponsor, CSECO, Campbell Harris Security Equipment Company. Thank you for supporting us. And man, until next time, thank you, B. I appreciate you.
Yep, sure. Thank you.